Okay, when you hear the words Edo, Japan, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For a lot of us, it's probably samurai, shoguns, a country totally cut off from the rest of the world, right? But what if I told you that whole image, the one we get from movies, is missing the biggest part of the story? What if this closed country was actually a massive player in the world's first real wave of globalization? All right, so let's start with that picture we all have in our heads. It's a really powerful image, and honestly, it's pretty cool. We think of this land of ancient traditions and beautiful art, a place that just decided to turn its back on everyone else.
And of course, samurai are front and center in that picture. We imagine them on every street corner. But the reality is, the warrior class was only about 6 or 7% of the population. For most people, daily life was something else entirely. And you know what? The story of the nation was too.
So let's just toss that old image aside for a minute. Because the real engine driving this whole period, the secret that actually connected Japan to the entire planet, it wasn't a policy. It was a metal, a shiny, precious metal that the rest of the world was absolutely desperate to get its hands on. So let's get right into it, because this one fact is a total game changer. It reframes the entire Edo period. This wasn't an age of isolation. It was an age of incredible global importance, all thanks to a treasure that was literally flowing out of Japan's mountains. See, the key to understanding all this isn't hidden away in some dusty old warrior code. Nope. It's all about economics, trade, and a single, super valuable resource that Japan just happened to have in abundance. All right, take a look at this number, 25 to 30%. It might just look like a statistic, but what it represents is absolutely staggering. This number is what made Japan an economic superpower. Because yeah, that's Japan's share of all the silver being produced in the entire world. At the very dawn of globalization, nearly a third of the silver circulating on the planet came from Japan. That's the cash that was funding European empires and making trade happen from the Americas all the way to China. And here's the bottom line. You just don't produce that much of the world's money and stay isolated. It's impossible. This silver didn't build walls. It built bridges. It was a magnet that pulled Japan right into the center of a brand new, interconnected world.
Now, to really get a feel for how huge this was, we've got to zoom out and look at the whole world map. This wasn't happening in a vacuum. Japan's silver boom hit at the exact same time that humanity was, for the first time ever, basically wiring the entire planet together.
You had European ships racing across oceans, charting new routes. Portugal was setting up shop in India. Spain created this incredible trade highway across the Pacific, linking American silver to Asian markets. And then bam! Right into the middle of this whirlwind, Portuguese traders land in Japan and find a nation sitting on a mountain of the exact thing they needed to fuel this new global economy. But what's really fascinating is how different countries dealt with this new global age. So take India, for example. It had a massive cotton industry, but it was basically crushed by the British to prop up their own economy. Japan, though? Japan used its leverage, all that silver, to play the game very, very differently. It decided to engage, but on its own terms. So how did they pull this off? Well, their master plan wasn't to just lock the doors and hide. It was more like opening a window, just a crack, and being incredibly careful about what you let in, and then using it to build something strong and unique from the inside out. And this gets us right back to the main question, that policy that we always call sakoku, or closed country. It starts to look less like a wall and more like a really sophisticated filter, doesn't it? It was a deliberate strategy to get all the benefits of global trade without the huge risk of being taken over. And you know, there's actually a perfect term for this whole idea: endogenous development. It sounds kind of fancy, but all it really means is growing from within. You build a strong society using your own strengths and your own culture instead of just copying someone else or giving in to outside pressure. And they really put this into action. I mean, they didn't just ignore the world. They selectively studied things like European medicine. And here's the really smart part. They knew that silver boom wouldn't last forever. So they used that wealth as like seed money to build a society that could completely stand on its own. And the result? A country that was 100% self-sufficient in things like clothing, with a thriving internal economy that lasted for centuries. So why does any of this matter to us today? In our own age of hyper-globalization, the story of Edo Japan offers this really powerful, kind of surprising lesson about how a country can choose to engage with the world. The source makes this fascinating connection to our modern lives. You know that constant pressure, the feeling that you have to keep buying things to be happy? Well, that's exactly the kind of external pressure that the Edo period was consciously set up to resist by focusing on its own self-sufficient economy. And the contrast, when you look at it, is just wow. Think about this. Edo Japan made 100% of its own clothes. Compare that to modern Japan, which depends on the rest of the world for most of its food. That's a huge shift from self-reliance to interdependence. Which kind of leaves us with this final thought. Maybe the great misunderstanding of Edo Japan isn't just about getting history wrong. The real story isn't about a country that hid from the world. It's about a country that figured out how to look the world right in the eye and then decide for itself exactly how it wanted to live. And in our world today, that's a pretty powerful idea to chew on.